of our witnesses, I'd like now to recognize my distinguished colleague from Michigan, the ranking member of the subcommittee, the gentleman, again from Michigan, Mr. Upton.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I thank you for calling this very important hearing. What happened on the Deepwater Horizon rig was truly a national tragedy. The loss of life was heartbreaking, and the environmental and economic damage that worsens by the day is gut-wrenching. As I've said many times before, it needs to be made crystal clear to all involved that the polluter will pay. The American taxpayers should not and will not be on the hook for the cost of this accident, both economic and environmental. Nor should consumers be punished with tax increases passed in the name of the BP spill that will only serve to add costs to hardworking Americans and further weaken our economy. We now have the opportunity to look BP America in the eye and demand that they fulfill their responsibility for the disaster in the Gulf, and an important step is the creation of an escrow account that will ensure American taxpayers are not left holding the tab. In the wake of this tragedy, we must work together to find solutions that will protect consumers, taxpayers, and our national security. The cleanup has been too slow, way too slow, and too indecisive. We want answers, and we want them all. We have to work to ensure that a disaster like this never happens again. When that rig exploded and as millions of gallons of oil leak into the Gulf of Mexico, our economy and our national security posture is indeed weakened. I'm aware that each witness today was given a lengthy list of questions to answer in advance of the hearing. Many of these questions are constructive and relate to the problem at hand. Questions about rig safety, about worst-case scenarios if there's another rig explosion, and questions about chemical dispersants. Legitimate and constructive questions that will help us forge a solution-oriented policy. I am, however, disheartened to learn that a few of the questions have nothing to do with the disaster that we're trying to solve and serve the sole purpose of scoring political points and trying to advance an unrelated policy agenda that will raise taxes, eliminate American jobs, and leave consumers already struggling in this down economy with higher energy costs. Some of those questions are: how much has your company invested in the deployment of renewable alternative energy? What steps do you believe that the U.S. government and private industry should take to reduce the threat posed by climate change? Does your company support an economy-wide cap on greenhouse gas emissions that includes transportation fuels? Would your company be able to pass any of the cost of purchasing emission allowances through its customers? Frankly, I would prefer to bring up the cap-and-trade bill again on the House floor because I'm convinced that this year it would fail rather than pass by the 7-vote margin that it did last summer. But that is not the issue at hand. Instead of taking time to talk about cap and tax or cap and trade, let's figure out how to cap the well. We're not here to discuss climate change, but rather what each of our witnesses think went wrong on the Horizon rig and what policy change can be made to ensure that it never happens again. Let us not forget what's on the line here: jobs, the environment, our economy, and national security. 3 years ago, when BP was caught increasing the discharge into Lake Michigan, I joined with the Great Lakes Caucus and other colleagues on both sides of the aisle across the Great Lakes to beat back the attempt to increase pollution in our lake. We didn't take a partisan posture. We worked together to solve the problem. We need similar bipartisanship here today. The Gulf of Mexico accounts for almost a third of U.S. oil production. If we eliminate that supply and our dependency on the dependency on foreign oil will indeed go up. Saudi Arabia will be happy. Hugo Chavez, Ahmadinejad, they'll be popping champagne perhaps. But the American consumer will be remembering the good old days when gas was only $4 a gallon. The team of engineers tapped by Secretary Salazar to examine what went wrong on the Horizon rig recently wrote, quote, "We believe the blowout was caused by a complex and highly improbable chain of human errors coupled with several equipment failures and was preventable. The petroleum industry will learn from this it can and will do better. We should not be satisfied. Just wait for a second. We should not be satisfied until there are no deaths and no environmental impacts offshore, ever. However, we must understand that as with any human endeavor, there will always be risks, end quote. Let's learn from this awful mistake, fix the problem, clean up the Gulf, and move forward to fixing our ailing economy and create private sector jobs. Yield back my time.
Great. Thank the gentleman. Chair recognizes the chairman of the full committee, the gentleman